How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another Flesh and Blood deck tech video here on Red Zone Rogue. Today we have my very first post-Everfest deck tech featuring one of my favorite heroes of all time, Lexi. This is a Lexi no fuse, no problem deck tech video. This is for Blitz, and it's a Lexi deck tech that, like the name implies, does not fuse. We don't need to fuse. It kind of plays a little bit like Lightning Lexi, but honestly I think it's more consistent and just better overall because you don't have to rely on having those fuse cards, and you can really go to town with some of the powerful generic cards like Rain Razors. In my testing, this deck has been incredibly powerful, and I've only lost a handful of games. It's really good, so I can't wait to share it with everyone. I think this is just a phenomenal deck. It's really fun, and it really shows just how powerful Lexi can be. If you're looking to pick up any of these cards in today's video, definitely check out my affiliate link with Channel Fireball in the description down below for any singles and or sealed purchasing needs. You can use the promo code ROGUE at checkout, and there's a bunch of other links down there as well, including my Dragon Shield link that we'll talk about in just a little bit. But let's get on with the deck tech. This deck is sweet. Let's do it. All right, I'm really excited for this one. This is my very first post-Everfest deck, and I just love it. Before we get started, truly talking about this deck, I just wanted to point out these amazing Dragon Shield dual matte sleeves. They're my favorite sleeves on the market, and I do have an affiliate link with Dragon Shield in the description down below. Using that link goes and supports me, tells Dragon Shield that you like my stuff and that you like their stuff. And I really like their stuff. These dual mats are so great. I'm running out of them. I need to buy more. So yes, the dual mats, and I think the white ones in particular, go really nicely with this Lexi deck. So, Lexi. Let's talk about Lexi, because I originally built this deck to be Azalea, and then I just thought, wait a minute, this would just be so much better if it was just Lexi, and I turned it into Lexi, and it was just, yes, that much better. I typically use this artist proof because, you know, Lexi's just a token, but I have Lexi here just in case people aren't cool with artist proofs. Anyway, Lexi, fantastic. Lexi, we'll go over all the cards individually. We'll talk about my choices behind them and why I chose Lexi and all that kind of stuff. We're gonna go in detail. This is what you're gonna get if you watch the video and don't just look at the deck list, which is also in the description down below. Shout out to FABDB, sponsor of the channel. You know what? You should go check them out too. While you're down there, checking out the deck list, check out FabDB. Look at all their cool stuff. They are a sponsor of this channel. So, Lexi. Lexi has Essence of Ice and Lightning, but this is a no fuse, no problem Lexi. We're not really going to be worried about fusing all that much, but we do have a couple Ice and Lightning cards, and we'll talk about them when we get to them. She also has a once per turn action. Turn a face down card in your arsenal face up. If it's a lightning card, your next attack this turn gains go again. That's just next any attack, so your next Command and Conquer gains go again, or whatever. And then also, if it's an ice card, your opponent gets a Frostbite token, which is pretty good. We have our Frostbite token here. Foil, fresh out of Everfest, we have our Frostbite token, which just means cards and activated abilities our opponent's control cost an additional 1, and then at the beginning of the end phase or whenever you play an action or activated ability, they destroy the Frostbite token. So just a little way to slow them down. We don't have a ton of ways to do this, but it's good to have a token because we do have ways to do this. And the big reason I chose Lexi over Azalea is Voltaire, right? So Voltaire is an absurdly powerful bow. I would argue it's probably one of the most powerful bows in the game. Maybe one of the most powerful weapons in the game, honestly. But it enables what we're doing. So Voltaire is an elemental ranger bow. It also says twice per turn instant, not an action, instant. For a resource, you may put an arrow card from your hand face up into an empty arsenal zone you control. If you do, choose one. It either gains +1 or go again. And both of those are incredibly relevant to our deck. The deck originally, like I said, was playing Azalea, and I was using Death Dealer, but I was just like, this is just so much easier if I can just give everything go again. And that's what we did. That's what we did. So yeah, we are running our Coldful Voltaire here. Also, I'd like to note that since this is one of my favorite decks, I also am calling this my maximum flex deck. I am unabashedly sleeving up and playing with a lot of very nice cards. So yeah. We have our New Horizons. So this is our standard equipment loadout here. So let's go over the standard equipment loadout. This is what I run for a majority of heroes that I play against. So we are running New Horizons. I always run New Horizons no matter what. I'll put an S at the end of that, New Horizon. It says, while you have a face-up card in your arsenal, you have an additional arsenal zone. That's really, really relevant for Lexi's ability to turn cards in our arsenal face up. So if you had a card in our arsenal face down, but we still wanted to activate something like Voltaire to put an additional arrow, then we'll have to activate Lexi to turn that card face up, even for no value. Remember, Lexi just turns the card face up, and then it does something, whether or not it's an ice or lightning card. And if it's neither of those, it just does nothing. Just remember that. You can still use it, just you won't gain any benefit. And then New Horizon just says, you know, when it's destroyed, destroy all cards in your arsenal. It has Blade Break and blocks for 2, which is actually super relevant in Blitz. Blocking for 2 is a huge deal against the new Benji deck. So we really want to block with our New Horizon last, because it's one of the best cards that we have. But don't be afraid to block with it if your opponent's Benji's doing some Spring Tides and you just want to not die. So yes, New Horizon is fantastic. Next we're running the Fiendel's Spring Tunic. I really like this card in this deck. I usually get to activate it maybe twice over the course of a game before you can, you know, close it out. So that's not too bad, and it also blocks if you have to. It's kind of like Vest of the First Fist, but it's spread out and you can block with it. And block with it is actually relevant. I will quickly go over this in case you don't know what Tunic does, if this is one of your first Flesh and Blood videos. Basically, every one of your turns you put a counter on it, and then you can remove 3 counters and gain 1 resource. It can't have more than 3 counters, so it kind of caps out. It also has Blade Break and blocks for 1, so when you block with it, it is destroyed. Same with the New Horizon. We're also running a Cold Foil Snapdragon Scalers because I can. And it just says attack reaction, destroy Snapdragon Scalers. Target attack action card with cost 1 or less gains Go Again. You might be saying, well, your bow already gives everything Go Again. Why do you need the Scalers? Because you actually do. You actually do. There are many situations where the Scalers are incredibly important, especially when combined with the Bullseye Bracers. I'm also running a Cold Foil version of these as well. Bullseye Bracers says action, destroy the Bullseye Bracers. If you have no cards in your arsenal, you may put an arrow card from your hand face up into your arsenal. It gains +1 until end of turn, then Go Again. It also has Arcane Barrier 1, so we run this basically no matter what, unless we're playing against Benji. We'll swap this out for a higher block card against Benji. But other than that, you run this no matter what. And these 2 cards are insanely good together because you can have turns where you are just popping off doing tons of damage with your Voltaire, and then you can attack with something like an Endless Arrow, and we'll talk about this when we get to Endless Arrow because I honestly think that's one of the best cards in this deck, and they have little or no cards left that they want to block with. You immediately crack the Scalers, give the Endless Arrow Go Again, Endless Arrow comes back to your hand, pop the Bullseye Bracers, put the Endless Arrow into your arsenal and fire it off for another 5, or another +2 if you're running Rain Razors, so 7. There's a lot of crazy things you can do, and I know I just smacked my Scalers, but yes, awesome stuff. These are fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And then we have the rest of our equipment loadout, and honestly, the rest of the loadout's pretty dubious right now. I think I was trying Shock Charmers, and a lot of people are like, oh yeah, run Shock Charmers, but I honestly don't like it that much. Maybe... No, not even against Kano. I think Shock Charmers is one of the ones I would take out, and I'll tell you what I would take it out for. Same with the Skullbone Crosswrap. I do like the Skullbone Crosswrap, and I was thinking about just putting it in against Kano. You know, if you wanted to have a full suite of Arcane Barrier, and that's maybe the one reason you can run it, because it does have that Arcane Barrier. But other than that, it doesn't really do a lot for us in this deck. Vest of the First Fist is actually a fantastic option if you don't have a Spring Tunic. So if you don't have a Spring Tunic, you can just run Vest of the First Fist instead, because it just says, when an attack action card you control hits, you can destroy the vest, and if you do, it gains 2 resources. And those 2 resources are amazing, because that's exactly what you need to load the Voltaire and then fire off an arrow most of the time. So Vest is really, really good. And once again, if you don't have a Tunic, you can just run the Vest. This is another one that I have been testing around with, whether I think it's better or not. But like I said, I think actually the Tunic is better. Well, not better. I get value out of the Tunic, right? The question was, is Vest just always better? And I don't think Vest is always better, but I think it's fantastic. This is another one that I'd recommend considering or maybe not. And then I'm running some Null Rune equipment and Perch Grapplers. So the Null Rune equipment is obviously just comes in versus Kano. I would also say that replace this Null Rune robe with a Heart of Ice if you have it, because it's literally the same thing, except Heart of Ice can also block and has an ability. I just don't own a Heart of Ice. It's one of the only 3 cards I don't own in the entire game, with Arknight Shard and Eye of Ophidia. That's that. Those are the only 3 cards I don't own. So run a Heart of Ice if you have it, just for the Arcane Barrier. Null Rune Boots for the Arcane Barrier. And then Perch Grapplers is literally a 2-block Blade Break. We don't use the ability to give things go again at all. In the Azalea build, Perch Grapplers was like integral. Like we always wanted to use the Perch Grapplers so we can kind of do our Wombo combo, but Voltaire makes it so we don't even need these. We only play these against Benji. And then against Benji, if you have a lot of Benjis in your meta, I would also run, so you'd run Perch Grapplers, because I know a lot of people are worried about Benji these days. You would run Perch Grapplers, New Horizon, and then both of the Iron Hide pieces, the Iron Hide chest and the Iron Hide gloves. You might want to just run the Iron Hide gloves and stick with your Spring Tunic, because the Spring Tunic can still block if you need to. But having all these 2 blocks is really, really good. I would literally just throw 2 or 3 of them in front of a Spring Tidings and pray they don't have an attack reaction. That's basically how it's going to come down. And if you can block it out and they can't do their Spring Tidings, I think you have a really good chance. So that's what that's going to really boil down to, honestly. Like I said, for the most part, you're going to be running these. This is going to be your standard loadout for almost every matchup, and, you know, unless you're playing against Kano, in which case you bring in your Null Rune Boots and your Heart of Ice if you have it, because that'll still give you 3 Arcane Barrier, because Bullseye Bracers has Arcane Barrier. And then against Benji, like I said, you just keep your New Horizon and bring in your Perch Grapplers and Iron Hide pieces. All right, so let's talk about the deck. We're already like 10 minutes in. Let's talk about the deck. All of that stuff was very important, though. It's really important for matchups in Blitz. Let's talk about the best cards in the deck. Well, let's talk about the non-attack action best cards. First up, we have 3 of a Kind. This card is nuts and probably one of the best cards in the game. And it's actually kind of sad that if this card just said draw 3 cards, go again, Ranger still wouldn't be the best class in the game. So I guess that says something for Ranger as a class, but still very, very powerful. 1 cost, draw 3 cards. Until end of turn, you may only play cards from Arsenal, which is one of the big reasons why I think this deck is so good, is because we can actually get around this quite easily with a good number of our effects. We have our Voltaire, instant speed puts things into our arsenal, as well as instants that we can play before we do a 3 of a Kind. So we'll talk about those right now, because we have Rain Razors. This card is insane. Like, I think a lot of people are way undervaluing this card. Rain Razors is nuts, especially in this kind of deck. So Rain Razors is a 0 cost yellow pitch card. It's an instant, so it doesn't block, and it says arrows have +2 while attacking this turn. You're like, oh, just +2 to like a couple arrows. What does it get, like +4? No, this card is nuts. Like, this card is actually nuts because, well, first of all, if you have 3 of a Kind, you literally just play your Rain Razors first. You just start the turn by playing Rain Razors because it doesn't have to have a target. It just says arrows have +2. So unlike something like Lunging Press or any other attack reaction that requires you to have a target, you can just play Rain Razors first and then not have to worry about anything. And then you can set up a turn where you can get a ton of actual damage off of Rain Razors, you know, up to maybe 8 to 10 additional damage depending on how many arrows you can fire off on a 3 of a Kind turn if you have stuff already in your arsenal. It's insane. And if you combine this with stuff like Endless Arrow, which we'll talk about, plus, you know, like I already told you about, like turns where you can just easily Snapdragon your Endless Arrow, Bullseye Bracers it back, and then attack with it again. On a Rain Razor's turn, that Endless Arrow's coming in for another 7. So there's just like another 7 on top of everything just because of your equipment. You can push a ton of damage through, easily push 20 plus damage turns. Yeah, so pretty good. pretty good. So Three of a Kind and Rain Razors are two of the cards that really make this deck work, and they're just generic Ranger cards, and we have a ton of generic Ranger cards like this, which is why we're a no fuse Lexi deck. We don't care about fusing, we just care about playing these insanely powerful Ranger cards to the maximum of their ability. I said that weird. We're maximizing their potential. Let's talk about the other best Ranger cards in this deck, their attack actions. We have Bolt and Shot, we have Remorseless, and we have Endless Arrow. Okay, so let's talk about Bolt and Shot first, because Bolt and Shot is like the real butter of this deck. Like it's what makes everything just taste good. This is a 0 cost, 4 attack, 3 block, Ranger attack action arrow. While Bolt and Shot's attack is greater than its base attack, it has go again, and if it hits, reload. That's insane. That's like really, really good. And being able to get that reload off on Three of a Kind turns is crazy good, especially if you can give that arrow go again through other means. And just loading a Bolt and Shot off of a Bolt and Shot on a Rain Razor's turn is nuts, because it will always have that additional plus. So it'll always have attack greater than its base attack. So if you Bolt and Shot and you're able to like just drop in another Bolt and Shot, it'll automatically get that +2, and therefore the go again and the ability from reload. Once again, Rain Razors is freaking nuts. This card is nuts. You can just do such gross things, which is, you know, finally feels good to be able to do some stuff like this with Ranger. So another one of the best cards in the deck, and because of that, I'm running the reds. I'm running the yellows, which attack for 3, but honestly, they're really coming in for much more than that. On a Rain Razor's turn, you know, coming in for 4 or coming in for 5, and maybe 6 if you're using a using the bow to give it +1. That's another thing. You always give +1 with the bow. This is basically a 1 cost 5 attack go again that also reloads with the bow. And this is a 1 cost 4 attack go again with the bow. And then we're even running the blues because it's still just super, super good. You just play the blue at the end of a big chain and then just get some great value out of it. So yeah, we're running full of those, or all 6 of those. We're also running Remorseless, which is just one of the most raw, powerful arrows in the entire game. It's a 1 cost, 5 attack, 3 block. It's put in your arsenal face up until end of turn. Defense reactions can't be played from arsenal to Remorseless's chain link. It can come up every now and then, but we're playing Blitz and we just want to burn our opponents as fast as possible. And then it says if it hits a hero until the end of their next turn, whenever they play an attack action card, they lose 1. I like to start with Remorseless because it's so powerful. Your opponent will almost always try to block it out, and if you are giving it, you usually just give it go again. You can give it +1 if you want to, you know, bait your Snapdragon Scalers. But, you know, you just come in with Remorseless. It's coming in for 5, so it's going to either require 2 cards from hand to block out or, you know, use of some equipment. I always start with this because I really just want to actually hit with my Bolt and Shots to continue to shoot more Bolt and Shots and just to have gross turns. So Remorseless is fantastic. Yeah, it's just so good. It's so good, and it's kind of like a must block card. Most people will do their best to block it. And then here we have Endless Arrows, another one of the cards that I would consider to be one of the most underrated arrows in the entire game. It is a 0 cost, 4 attack, 3 block arrow. If it hits, put it into your hand. Now, you can have insanely disgusting turns with this if your opponent is either low on cards, or you can set up a turn where they just can't block this. And like I said, you can do that on a Rain Razor's turn pretty easily. So what you would do is you would do your regular stuff. You do your Rain Razors, then your Three of a Kind, and you'll have a bunch of cards in your hand and whatever. You're shooting off your Remorseless for 7 with go again, and then maybe you shoot off a Bolt and Shot, and they're like blocking all this stuff. And then you're just like, okay, then for my last one, I'll just do Endless Arrow, fire it off. So it's coming in for maybe 6 because you maybe reloaded it with a Bolt and Shot. Coming in for 6, and if it hits, then you can just immediately pop your Scalers to give it go again, and then your Bullseye Bracers, and then send it back on in for another 7, which will likely hit and then come back into your hand, and then you just arsenal it and set up for a bigger turn for the next turn. It's nuts. This is nuts. This is crazy good. And so that's like the core of the deck. Like these cards here are like the main core of the deck. You want your Endless Arrows, your Remorseless, your suite of Bolton shots, and then 3 of a kind and rain razors really enable some disgusting turns. If you see those cards in your hand, you're like, yes, yes. The rest of the deck is pretty good. Like, we're just playing some powerful arrows. We don't really care about fusing once again, so it doesn't matter all that much. And we're playing some really powerful generic cards too, because we can, because we don't care about fusing. So we have Fatigue Shot. It's just a 1 for 5. It's from Everfest. I think this card's fantastic against certain decks. It says if it hits a hero, the base attack of the first attack action card they play during the next turn is halved, rounded up. So really, really good against Guardian and Brute and some other really big, heavy hitting attackers. So I do like Fatigue Shot quite a bit. 1 for 5 is kind of where we want to be. We also have Sleep Dart. This is one of the most contentious cards in my opinion in the deck. I think I want to cut this for a yellow headshot, or maybe even a red headshot, but in any case, it's really, really good against some heroes and literally does nothing against others. So like against Dash, doesn't do anything. Against Levia, she just basically dies. So it's hit and miss. So it's a 1 cost 5 attack, and if it hits, their hero loses all abilities basically. It says treat the hero card as if the text box is empty. So once again, really good against some heroes, does nothing against others. And in Blitz, I think I just maybe want a headshot instead, where the headshot can just come in for 7. I'm also running Battering Bolt. I think Battering Bolt is actually legit, like super legit. 1, it attacks for 6, so it can block and pop illusionist stuff, but also just has a really good on-hit effect, and the hit effect is really good in Blitz because it hits a lot of good stuff. So this is a 2 cost 6 attack, 3 block, one of our only 2 attacks in the game, or 2 attacks in the deck, but we're running a lot of blue cards, so we can, pitch a blue and then load it up with our Voltaire and then fire it off. If that's our only card, we can just give it +1 with Voltaire, so it's coming in for 7, which is pretty good. And it says, when it hits a hero, they reveal their hand. So you get to see their hand, which is cool. They discard all cards other than action cards, which means they discard all instants, all reactions, both attack and defense, and then all like other weird things like gems and that kind of stuff. Then they lose 1 life for each card they discarded this way. There's a lot of instants and whatnot in Blitz, and a lot of reactions, and it's so good. Like getting like a warrior with this and forcing them to discard all of their attack reactions. Ooh, it's so good. Playing against Kasai on maybe turn 1 and battering bolting them. They're basically just gonna end up blocking with those cards anyway. But it's nice. I do like the Battering Bolt quite a bit. Now we're also running Light It Up. So we're not gonna be fusing this all that much, but it's still pretty good because it blocks for 3, pitches for 2. It's a 1 cost 4 attack arrow, but it still has an ability even if we don't fuse it. And we can still fuse it. We have a couple cards that will let us fuse it. But it says Lexi Specialization, Lightning Fusion. If it was fused, it gains, if it hits a hero, deal 1 damage to them for each equipment they control, which is really good. But even if it's not fused, it says, if Lighted Up deals damage to a hero equal to or greater than the number of equipment they control lose and can't gain activated abilities until the end of their next turn. So that's still really good. Like, you still have a way to blank all of your opponent's equipment if they don't block it out. So I think Lighted Up is actually definitely worth it in this deck. Still just a good arrow, even with no fuse. Same with Frostlock, actually. In fact, Frostlock is nuts, even with no fusion. This is one of my super secret techs during the last calling season in my Ice Lexi, or in my Lightning Lexi deck. So first of all, pitches for 3, fantastic. Blocks for 3, fantastic. We already want those. It's a 1 cost 3 attack arrow. Has Ice Fusion, and it just says, even if it's not fused, cards and activated abilities cost opposing heroes an additional 1 this turn, for the entire turn. So if you start off with a Frostlock with Go Again, all cards and activated abilities your opponents control cost additional 1. So if you can do a Frostlock and then maybe into a Battering Bolt, you can maybe get rid of all their instants before they can even play them because they all cost an additional 1. Frostlock is fantastic. Really, really good anti-defense reaction tech since we're not running Dreadbore. So I like Frostlock a lot. Next up we have Headshot, one of my favorite arrows. This card is so sweet. I love this more and more every single time I play Ranger, especially the blue one. So it's a 1 cost 2 attack Ranger arrow, but if it's put in your arsenal face up, it gains +2, and we're almost always going to be putting it into the arsenal face up. So it'll get that +2. So it's basically a 1 cost 4 attack that pitches for blue, But if it's our last one in our chain, or that we're loading up with our bow, we can give it a +1. So it's a 1 cost 5 attack that also pitches for blue and also blocks for 3. Really good. Also, because we are not running any fusion kind of stuff, we can run powerful generics like Enlightened Strike. So yeah, we're running Enlightened Strike. It's just really good. It's really solid. It's a 0 for 7, or it's a 0 for 5 with Go Again, or it's a 0 for 5 that draws you a card. Just remember, you always have to tuck a card with Enlightened Strike because it's an additional cost. You have to put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. But other than that, it's very, very powerful. I've used Snapdragons on this card before, choosing the draw card mode to just, you know, keep the pain going. Enlightened Strike is just super, super good. It's super good. So we're running two of those. We're also running Command and Conquer because guess what? It's just generically good. And just having Command and Conquer in your deck is just pretty good. It also blocks Illusionist cards. So yeah, we are running 2 foil Command and Conquers because, yeah, let's just do it. It blocks for 3, costs 2, comes in for 6. They can't play defensive reaction cards to Command and Conquer's Chain Link, and if it hits a hero, throw cards in their arsenal. Just really good, generic all-around card. You don't need this card in this deck. Like, you don't need this card or Enlightened Strike. They're just, you know, extra stuff. You know, they're just very extra. Though I will note that both of these cards will gain Go Again from Lexi's ability if you can flip up a Lightning card. I'm also running Seek and Destroy. This is another kind of contentious one. I'm not sure about this one, but it has been pretty good for me so far. So it's a 0 cost +3 to your next arrow, and then if it hits at the beginning of your opponent's next end phase, they destroy all cards in their arsenal and discard all cards in their hand. So it's just a nice 0 +3 and then blows up all their stuff on their next turn. Pretty good. I have actually used this to good effect, destroying cards in arsenal and forcing my opponent to, you know, have it play like some pretty janky stuff. So I do like it, but this one is one of the ones that's on the chopping block. I'm not sure what I would cut for it yet, but I definitely want to, considering cutting the sleep darts for a yellow headshot. But yeah, that's one of the ones. Now we have some actual like cards we can fuse with, even though we usually don't. We have Polar Blast. I'm running Polar Blast and Electrify for kind of the same reasons, and we'll talk about let's talk about all of our elemental cards right here. So I'm only running 6. This is a no fuse deck. You can fuse, but not really. Not really. That's not the point. So these all do kind of different things, right? The Lightning Press is the easiest one. It's just it's a 0 cost +3 to anything except Command and Conquer and Battering Bolt. It just says target attack action card with cost 1 or less gains +3. I've had turns where I'm just like, okay, this is a bad turn for me. E-strike you for 7, and then like, okay, and then I'm just like lightning press it for 3. Like, you just E-strike you for 10. It's just like an easy way to just 10 your opponent. And when you have 20 starting life, 10 to your opponent's pretty good. So 0 for 3 is just really good. Doesn't block at all, but we don't really block anyway. Yeah, I do like Lightning Press a lot. And if you can set up turns where you have it in your arsenal, you flip it up and give something Go Again and, you know, do that kind of shenanigans. But yeah, I do like Lightning Press, red specifically, quite a bit. Now these two cards I have for the exact same reasons. They are both blue cards that draw us a card when played from arsenal and also have really good effects when we flip them up with our Lexi. So Polar Blast, they both cost 1 to play. They both block for 2. This one just says target opponent may pay 1. If they don't, your next attack this turn gains dominate, which is pretty good. And then it says if Polar Blast is played from arsenal, draw a card. We mostly just use this for resources, just for bloop. But if you have this at the end, you know, in your hand at the end of turn, you can just easily arsenal this card and then next turn set up for a really, really nice turn where you flip it up, get that Lexi ability where they get a Frostbite token, and then just play the Polar Blast, draw your extra card, get that effect, and just have a nice turn. Electrify is the exact same thing. Blue draws a card when you play it from your arsenal, but it also just says the next time an attack action card hits the turn, or hits a hero this turn, it deals an additional 1 damage to them. So, you know, you can have these nice little effects, but they are very, very versatile, and I think they're really good in this deck. Specifically these blue ones. I don't think I'd run yellows or reds, just the blues, because I need the resources, but I can also fuse if I need to for those 2 cards that have fuse, or I could use them for the Lexi ability, but still draw cards and gain a lot of value out of them. So I really, really like these in this deck. Oh, I like them I like them a lot. And then the final card is another very contentious card, honestly. I initially wanted this to be one of the best cards in the deck, and I wanted to talk about it, you know, saying, oh, it's the best cards in the deck, and you combine it with Rain Razors and 3 of a kind, and you have this turn where you go Tri-Shot, Rain Razors, 3 of a kind, and then you're just like, pew, 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 you know, like machine gun them down. But in practice, it doesn't really work out that well. You need like a perfect hand to do that, and it can work, right? It can work, but it's tricky. But the reason I keep it in here is because it is a blue pitch card, blocks for 3, and still has a relevant ability for 0. I'm very contentious on this one. This is a card that might get cut, but for now, it's still putting in a little bit of work. I've not gotten the full 5 shots off with I guess it's 4 shots off with Voltaire. So yeah, I mean, you could potentially fire 5 arrows a turn if you have Tri-Shot, Voltaire, and Bullseye Bracers, because you can activate Voltaire 4 times, and then if that last one had go again, pop your Bullseye Bracers, and then fire off another arrow. So you can potentially shoot 5 arrows in a turn, which is pretty good. And if you combine that, obviously, with 3 of a kind and Rain Razors, it's pretty good. I mean, the dream would be playing, like having a 3 of a kind in your arsenal and a 3 of a kind in your hand with a Rain Razors and going, you know, Tri-Shot, Rain Razors, 3 of a kind from your hand, 3 of a kind from your arsenal, and then just shoot off a million things. That's Magical Christmas Land. You can maybe do it, but it's like, you know, very, very unlikely. So that is our Lexi no fuse, no problem deck. I love this deck, and it's done a lot of good stuff for me so far. And I'm probably just gonna have this deck built throughout this entire competitive season, you know, basically until we get more Ranger cards and I can, you know, juice it up even more. I love this deck. So I hope you guys like the video. It's a bit longer than usual for deck techs, but I really wanted to go deep into this because I think this deck is sweet. And I think Ranger is still a fairly underrated class. It has a lot of challenges. I think just bows in general are one of the biggest challenges that Ranger has, even though it's super flavorful, and I love it. It's still kind of like an extra thing you have to deal with, whereas most classes can just be like, I pitch a thing and smack you. Rangers, you have to kind of filter everything through a bow. But when it works well, and it's good. It's real good. So I'm hoping for some even better stuff in the future, and I think this deck is quite good in Blitz. By the way, if you didn't gain like the insight on how to play this deck, you don't block. You almost never block. Basically, I'm gonna have some gameplay coming out, and you can see how I play this deck. I look at my opponent's attack, and I think to myself, all right, they're coming in for, you know, 8 or something. Can I just deal them more damage back? And if I do, can I strip their entire hand and then just get another free turn? And if the answer is yes, I'll usually just take a huge chunk of that damage. I block a lot with Command and Conquer. Like, I almost never play this card because it's just a 3 block. I just block with it and then just be like, okay, I don't really need the Command and Conquer because I'm just going to shoot you with like 4 arrows and yeah, pressure you so much that you're going to have to block with almost your entire hand. So that's how you play this deck. You play it kind of like Lightning Lexi, except you don't worry about the fusions. So it's much less clunky, much more consistent. You can still whiff on 3 of a kind, which is really bad. But we have a ton of attacks in the deck, a ton of arrows, and it just works really well. So thank you for listening to my Ranger TED Talk. I hope you liked the video. Let me know in the comments down below. If there's a hero you'd like to see me cover in particular, let me know. I'm going to be building a lot of decks now that I got my Everfest stuff in. So yeah, just let me know. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.